Hello, dear friends. Turning 70 is a milestone, one that feels like it came faster than I ever imagined. One day you're in your 20s, brimming with dreams and boundless energy, and then suddenly you wake up in a body that's a little slower, with a lifetime of memories to carry. Aging brings unexpected changes, not just to your body, but to your priorities and how you connect with the world around you. As I've grown older, I've noticed something about myself that I never expected. I've started to pull back from people. This might come as a surprise to those who knew the younger me, someone who thrived on socializing, surrounded by friends and family, always ready to lend a hand or attend a gathering. Back then, I was the person people could count on. But somewhere along the way, that began to change. At first, I thought it was just me, a quirk of aging. But the more I reflect on it, the more I realize it's something many of us experience. And today I want to share my journey with you. Not as a complaint, but as a reflection on the beauty and wisdom that come with understanding ourselves better as we age. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest updates. And here's a quick way to share your thoughts. If today's topic resonated with you, drop a comment with the number 1. If not, leave a 0. Your feedback helps us create meaningful content that truly speaks to your needs and interests. 1. Time feels more precious than ever. At 70, I see time differently than I ever did before. It's no longer just the ticking of a clock or the turning of a calendar page. It's a reminder of life's finiteness. When I was younger, time felt infinite, a vast, endless expanse stretching into forever. I spent it frivolously, assuming there would always be more, hours wasted on superficial conversations, relationships without purpose, and tasks that added little value to my life. Back then, those moments felt insignificant. Now they feel like lessons, and every remaining moment feels like a treasure. Time has transformed from being a measurement to becoming a companion. It sits with me in the quiet mornings as I sip my coffee, watching the sun rise and paint the sky in hues of gold and pink. It walks beside me during long afternoon strolls, the crunch of fallen leaves underfoot reminding me of life's beautiful cycles. And in the evenings, time whispers to me as I settle into my favorite chair, flipping through the memories of a life rich with experience, a new appreciation for moments. I used to think that filling my time with activity was the path to fulfillment. More people, more tasks, more noise. But now I know it's not about quantity, it's about quality. A single heartfelt conversation can outweigh an entire evening of shallow chatter. For example, last week, I spent an hour talking with an old friend. We reminisced about the reckless dreams of our youth and shared the wisdom we've gained through trial and error. That 1 hour left me feeling connected and alive in a way no crowded party ever could. These days, I choose carefully where I spend my time and with whom. The people who truly understand me, who light up my spirit, are worth every second. They remind me that relationships are not about how many you have, but about the depth they bring to your life. Lesson: time spent on meaningful connections is never wasted. Nurture the relationships that bring you joy and let go of those that drain you. Guarding the irreplaceable. The realization that time is irreplaceable has made me fiercely protective of it. When we're young, it's easy to think there's always a tomorrow to repair mistakes, rekindle friendships, or pursue dreams. But as the years pass, tomorrows become more finite. I've learned to say no to obligations that don't align with my values. A few months ago, I was invited to an event that sounded glamorous but held little personal meaning. I chose instead to spend the evening painting, an old hobby I've recently rediscovered. The peace and joy I felt during those quiet hours were far more fulfilling than the fleeting sparkle of a crowded room. Lesson: protect your time as the precious resource it is. Invest it in what brings you happiness and fulfillment, not in what feels like an obligation. Letting go to move forward. Another gift of time is learning to let go. The burdens of regret, grudges, and unfulfilled expectations weigh heavily if we carry them too long. But releasing them opens space for peace and contentment. I once held on to a grudge against an old colleague. For years, the memory of our disagreement lingered, a shadow over my thoughts. One day while journaling, I wrote them a letter, one I never sent, explaining my feelings and forgiving them. Though the letter sat quietly in my drawer, the act of writing it set me free. I've since found a deeper calm in letting go of resentment. Similarly, letting go of the need to achieve everything has brought me a surprising sense of liberation. Instead of chasing endless goals, I've embraced the joy of simply being, watching the breeze dance through the trees or listening to my favorite songs with undivided attention. Lesson: letting go is a powerful tool for reclaiming your time and energy. Release what no longer serves you to make room for what truly matters. Finding joy in the little things. At this stage of life, I've discovered that joy lies in the simple, often overlooked moments. A warm breeze, the laughter of grandchildren, the satisfaction of a well-cooked meal. These are the treasures that make time feel richer. One evening, my granddaughter brought me a drawing she'd made. It was a messy swirl of colors, but her pride and excitement were contagious. We spent the next hour creating art together, her giggles filling the room. That moment wasn't grand or monumental, but it was perfect. It reminded me that joy isn't in big achievements, but in small, heartfelt experiences. Lesson: life's greatest joys are found in the simple, everyday moments. Cherish them, for they are the essence of happiness. Living intentionally. The greatest shift I've experienced is living with intention. I no longer feel guilty for prioritizing what truly matters. Saying no to meaningless drama, shallow conversations, and activities that don't align with my values has been empowering. Instead, I focus on nurturing my health, pursuing my passions, and spending time with the people who bring light into my life. For example, I've started gardening. Each morning, I tend to my plants, watching them grow little by little. It's a reminder that life, like a garden, thrives with care and attention. And just as I nurture my plants, I've learned to nurture my time, investing it in what helps me flourish. Lesson: living intentionally brings clarity and peace. Focus on what truly matters to create a life filled with meaning. Conclusion: the gift of time. Time feels more precious now than ever before, not because I fear running out of it, but because I've come to understand its value. I've stopped chasing time and started savoring it. Each moment, no matter how small, holds the potential for joy and connection. At 70, I've found contentment not in doing more, but in being present. Time has become a dear friend, reminding me to cherish every sunrise, every laugh, and every quiet evening. It's a gift I no longer take for granted, and I intend to spend it wisely, with a full heart and an open spirit. 2. Solitude isn't loneliness. In my younger days, I used to think that being alone was synonymous with being lonely. The mere idea of spending an evening by myself felt daunting, almost like solitude was something to be feared and avoided. But as the years have passed, I've discovered something profoundly beautiful. Solitude is not loneliness. It's a gift, a treasure, a sanctuary for the soul. There is a world of difference between being alone and feeling lonely. Loneliness is a hollow ache, a yearning for connection that seems just out of reach. Solitude, however, is a peaceful fullness, a quiet harmony in the presence of your own company. It's where I found some of the richest, most meaningful moments of my life. Take, for example, the quiet mornings I now cherish. At 70, my day often begins with a cup of tea in hand as I sit by the window. There I watch the birds flit and flutter around the feeder, their movements delicate and purposeful. The sun's first rays peek through the trees, casting a golden hue over everything. In these moments, I'm reminded of how much joy can be found in simplicity. There's no need for grand gestures or elaborate plans, just the quiet beauty of nature and a heart open to its wonders. Solitude has also given me time to rediscover long-lost hobbies. For years, my knitting needles sat untouched, buried under the weight of busier days. But recently I picked them up again, and it's as though I've been reacquainted with an old friend. There's something meditative about the rhythmic click of the needles and the steady progress of a scarf taking shape. It reminds me that creativity doesn't have to be rushed. It's in the process where joy resides. One memory stands out vividly. A few months ago, I decided to take a walk in the nearby woods, something I hadn't done in years. The crisp air was laced with the scent of pine, and the crunch of leaves underfoot was a soothing soundtrack. As I strolled, I came across a clearing bathed in sunlight. I sat there for what felt like hours, listening to the gentle rustle of the trees and the distant chirping of birds. In that stillness, I felt a profound sense of connection, not to people, but to the world around me and, most importantly, to myself. This doesn't mean I've distanced myself from others. I still delight in the laughter of my grandchildren when they visit, the warmth of a conversation with an old friend, or the shared purpose of volunteering for a cause close to my heart. The difference now is that these moments are chosen deliberately. I no longer feel obligated to say yes to every invitation or maintain relationships that no longer bring joy. This intentionality has brought a deeper meaning to the connections I hold dear. Solitude has also provided me with the space to reflect and grow. In the quiet moments, memories from the past often surface, not to haunt me, but to teach me. I think back to my younger self, the mistakes I made, the triumphs I celebrated, and the lessons learned along the way. One evening, while sitting by the fire, I found myself thinking about a difficult friendship from my 30s. Back then, I struggled to let go, clinging to the relationship out of fear of being alone. Now, with the wisdom of years, I see that releasing what no longer serves you isn't a loss. It's an act of self-care. That realization was like lifting a weight I didn't know I was still carrying. When I do spend time with others, I've noticed a shift in how I engage. I'm fully present now, savoring every smile, every story, every shared moment. There's no rush, no urge to check my phone or think about what's next. This presence has deepened my relationships and filled them with authenticity. Whether it's a quiet conversation with my partner or an afternoon baking cookies with my granddaughter, these moments feel richer, more vibrant. Perhaps the greatest gift of solitude is the way it's taught me to love myself. In the stillness, I've come to see that my worth isn't tied to how busy I am or how many people I'm surrounded by. It's in the quiet acceptance of who I am, flaws and all. Solitude has shown me that I am enough, just as I am, and that realization is more empowering than any external validation could ever be. In this stage of life, I've learned that solitude is not a retreat, it's a homecoming. It's a choice to step away from the noise and focus on what truly matters. It's a reminder that happiness doesn't always come from grand achievements or bustling social calendars. Often it's found in the smallest, quietest moments: a steaming cup of tea, a walk in the woods, a memory revisited by the fire. So if you ever find yourself fearing solitude, remember this: it's not a void to fill, but a canvas to paint your piece. In solitude, you may just discover a strength and happiness that you never knew existed. 3. Relationships change, and so do we. As time moves on, so do the relationships in our lives, evolving in ways we might never expect. Some flourish and deepen with shared memories and mutual growth, while others quietly fade, like an unfinished book placed back on the shelf. At 70, I've come to embrace this natural ebb and flow, realizing that not every relationship is meant to last forever, and that's perfectly okay. The people who remain in your life during this season are often the ones who matter most. When I was younger, relationships felt like the cornerstone of my life. My world revolved around friends, colleagues, and neighbors. I was the one who remembered birthdays, sent holiday cards, and showed up for every event. My energy was poured into keeping every connection alive, convinced that doing so defined my worth as a friend, family member, or community member. But over time, I noticed something. While some relationships nourished me, others left me feeling drained and unappreciated. One particular friendship stands out in my memory. Mary and I met when our children started school together. For years, we were inseparable. Weekly coffee chats, family barbecues, and endless phone calls. But as our kids grew older, our priorities shifted. She moved to another state, and despite my efforts to keep in touch, our conversations became less frequent and eventually stopped. I spent years feeling guilty, wondering what I had done wrong. Looking back now, I see it for what it was. A friendship meant for a season, one that brought joy and comfort when we both needed it. The natural evolution of relationships. Life has a way of pruning your social tree, People drift apart as their lives take different turns. Some friendships end with heartbreak, others with time. I used to internalize these losses, thinking I could have done something differently to hold on. But the truth is, relationships often serve a purpose, a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Recognizing this has brought me peace. For instance, a neighbor named Jim was like family to us when we first moved into our neighborhood. He'd help shovel snow from our driveway in winter and stop by for long chats on summer evenings. Over the years, though, our paths diverged. His priorities changed as his health declined, and we gradually lost touch. Yet I look back fondly on those moments, grateful for the kindness and sense of community we shared during that chapter of our lives. Changing ourselves, changing connections. It's not just others who change, we do too. The person I was at 40 is not who I am today. My values have shifted towards simplicity, kindness, and authenticity. I no longer have the patience for drama or relationships that feel one-sided. For years, I believed that being available to everyone made me a good friend or family member. Now I understand that true relationships are reciprocal. They fill you with energy rather than deplete it. A family gathering several years ago was a turning point for me. A relative, whom I'd always tried to please, criticized me openly in front of others. It wasn't the first time, but something inside me shifted that day. Instead of brushing it off, I calmly but firmly set a boundary. I decided I wouldn't allow anyone, family or not, to treat me in a way that undermined my self-worth. That experience taught me the value of standing up for myself and prioritizing relationships that bring positivity into my life. Lessons through heartache. Some of the deepest lessons about relationships come from painful experiences. Broken trust, unreciprocated loyalty, or kindness taken for granted can leave scars. Yet those scars often serve as reminders of our strength and growth. I've learned to set boundaries, recognize red flags, and value my own well-being. I recall a colleague from my working years who seemed like a close friend. We shared lunch breaks, swapped family stories, and even vacationed together once. But when I went through a difficult time, their support vanished. It hurt deeply, but it also opened my eyes to the importance of discerning who truly has your back. That heartbreak taught me not to confuse proximity or shared interest with genuine connection. Cherishing what matters today, I invest my time and energy in people who lift me up rather than weigh me down. My inner circle is smaller but infinitely richer. These are the relationships that nurture my soul, where kindness and respect flow both ways. That doesn't mean I don't feel nostalgia for relationships that have faded. I sometimes think about a childhood friend who felt like a sister to me. We haven't spoken in years, but the memories of our adventures still bring a smile to my face. Instead of mourning the loss, I choose to celebrate what those connections brought to my life at the time, finding meaning in every season. As I reflect on the relationships in my life, I've come to understand that each one, no matter how brief or lasting, has shaped me in some way. The friendships, the family bonds, the colleagues, they've all taught me lessons about love, patience, forgiveness, and resilience. My biggest takeaway? Relationships, like life itself, are not static. They evolve as we do. Accepting this truth has given me the freedom to let go when needed and to cherish what remains. If I could leave you with one piece of advice, it would be this. Focus on the relationships that nourish your soul. Invest in people who make you feel seen, valued, and loved. And for those relationships that fade, don't cling to what was. Appreciate them for what they brought into your life and the person they helped you become. Because in the end, it's not about how many people you know, but about the depth of the connections that truly matter. The changing world at 70. At 70, the world I see today feels vastly different from the one I grew up in. It's not just the pace of life that has accelerated, it's the way we connect, interact, and prioritize our time. Yet while I often feel a sense of longing for the simplicity and warmth of the past, I've also come to appreciate the beauty that still exists if we know where to look. Growing up, my neighborhood was an extension of my family. We knew everyone by name, and community wasn't just a word, it was a way of life. I remember Mrs. Brown next door, who'd knock on our door with her freshly baked apple pie, just because it's Tuesday. Or Mr. Jenkins, who mowed not only his lawn, but the lawns of 3 other neighbors who couldn't manage on their own. One summer afternoon, I sprained my ankle while playing outside. Within moments, neighbors gathered, offering ice packs, painkillers, and words of comfort. It wasn't just about helping, it was about showing up for each other, without needing a reason. That kind of effortless generosity felt like the glue holding us together. Today, things feel more fragmented. It's rare to even know your neighbor's name, let alone share moments of genuine connection. People are busy, rushing from one task to another, tethered to their phones, and juggling countless responsibilities. Conversations are brief, often interrupted by the ping of notifications. Even family gatherings, once filled with laughter and storytelling, now seem overshadowed by everyone's need to document the moment rather than live in it. Yet as much as I miss the simplicity of those days, I also understand that this change isn't all bad. For instance, technology has allowed me to video call my granddaughter halfway across the world. Just last week, she showed me her latest school project, a papier-mâché volcano, over a video call. Her excitement was palpable, even through the screen, and it reminded me that connections can still thrive if we nurture them intentionally. But there's no denying the challenges. A while back, I visited a coffee shop and noticed almost every table occupied by people staring at their screens. There was no chatter, no laughter, just a quiet hum of isolation. It made me think of Sunday afternoons when my family would gather around the dining table, playing cards or simply sharing stories. Those moments weren't just about the activity, they were about presence, the feeling of being truly seen and heard. I've also noticed how values seem to have shifted. Growing up, honesty, kindness, and a sense of community were the pillars of how we lived. When I was 12, I accidentally broke a neighbor's window while playing baseball. My father marched me over to their house to apologize and offer to fix it. Taking responsibility matters more than the mistake, he told me. That lesson stayed with me. Today, it feels like these values are sometimes overshadowed by the noise of competition and self-promotion. Social media, for all its benefits, often feels like a race to outdo each other, rather than a space to connect meaningfully. But every so often, I'm reminded that kindness and authenticity haven't vanished entirely. Last month, a young man at the grocery store helped me carry my bags to the car. His simple act of kindness was a glimmer of the world I still believe in. As I reflect on these changes, I realize it's not just about what has been lost, but also about what remains and what we can choose to hold on to. While it's easy to romanticize the past, I've learned that every era has its own challenges and blessings. The world may feel noisier and more disconnected, but it's still possible to find warmth and meaning if we're willing to slow down and seek it. So, what can we take away from all this? Cherish the present. The past may feel simpler, but the present holds opportunities to create new memories. Whether it's a heartfelt video call or a handwritten letter, meaningful connections are still within reach. Be the change. If you miss kindness and community, start by embodying those values. Smile at a stranger, check in on a neighbor, or spend uninterrupted time with loved ones. Small acts ripple outward. Find joy in stillness. In a world of constant noise, make time for quiet reflection. Whether it's a walk in nature or an evening with a good book, moments of peace can ground us in what truly matters. At 70, I've come to see the world not as it once was, but as it is now, flawed, evolving, and still full of possibilities. While the pace of life may never slow down, we can choose to step out of the rush and savor the connections, values, and moments that bring us joy. The warmth and simplicity I miss aren't gone. They're just waiting for us to rediscover them. 5. Trust grows more complex with age. As we navigate through life, the essence of trust evolves, becoming both more precious and more challenging to hold on to. In my younger years, trust came easily. I believed in the best of people, seeing the world through a lens of optimism. But as the years passed, life taught me a vital truth. Trust is fragile. Once broken, it's incredibly difficult to mend. Now at 70, I've grown selective about who I let into my inner world, not out of bitterness, but from a deep understanding of its value. The lessons life taught me. I've faced my fair share of betrayals, each one shaping my perspective on trust. One such experience stays fresh in my mind. A close friend, someone I had considered family, began to distance themselves during a difficult season in my life. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Busy schedules, life's demands. But as time went on, it became clear that their absence wasn't accidental. They had taken what they needed from our friendship and moved on, leaving me questioning what I had done wrong. Another instance involved a business partner. We had spent years building a venture together, but when success came knocking, so did their true colors. They prioritized personal gain over the vision we had shared, leaving me to pick up the pieces, not just of the business, but of my faith in partnerships. These experiences could have easily hardened my heart, yet they also offered a choice: shut myself off entirely or approach new relationships with both wisdom and grace. I chose the latter, and while it hasn't always been easy, it has been worth it. Trusting myself. First, one of the greatest lessons age has taught me is that trust isn't just about others. It's about trusting yourself. I remember a time when a family member's behavior left me conflicted. They began to make choices that I knew were harmful to themselves and others, yet I hesitated to address it out of fear of conflict. Over time, I learned to trust my instincts, to stand firm in setting boundaries, even with people I deeply care about. Trusting yourself means listening to that inner voice, the one that tells you when something isn't right. It's about walking away from toxic situations, even when it's painful. And it's about protecting your own peace, knowing that self-preservation isn't selfish, it's necessary. Restoring faith in humanity. Despite the challenges, life has also shown me that trust can still be rebuilt in small, meaningful ways. A moment that stands out happened just a few years ago. I was struggling with a heavy bag of groceries in the parking lot when a stranger noticed and rushed over to help. Their kindness was simple yet profound, reminding me that goodness still exists in the world. Another example is my neighbor, Mrs. Lee, who checks on me during storms to ensure I'm safe. She doesn't have to, but she does it anyway, embodying the kind of selflessness that restores my faith in human connection. These moments don't erase the pain of past betrayals, but they serve as gentle reminders that trust, while fragile, is not irreparable. A new perspective on trust. At this stage in life, I've come to view trust as a balance. It's not about building impenetrable walls to keep everyone out. Instead, it's about creating gates, strong enough to protect you from harm, but open enough to let love and kindness flow in. I've learned to cherish the few people I trust without reservation. These relationships, built on mutual respect and care, are treasures. I've also become more comfortable setting firm boundaries with those who haven't earned my trust. The gift of trust. As I reflect on my journey, I realize that while trust may now come with caution, it's also accompanied by a deeper appreciation for the relationships that have stood the test of time. Trust, I've discovered, is less about quantity and more about quality. It's about valuing the connections that bring joy and peace, even if they are few. And so, I move forward with a heart that's both guarded and open, holding on to the belief that trust, when nurtured with care and wisdom, is one of life's most beautiful gifts. At 70, I've learned that while trust is complicated, it's also one of the greatest lessons life can teach us, and that, I think, is something worth treasuring. 6. Why I avoid people now. At this stage of my life, avoiding people isn't about bitterness or harboring resentment. It's about choosing peace. After 7 decades filled with giving, learning, and yes, sometimes hurting, I've come to understand an important truth. Not every relationship is meant to last, and not every connection deserves the energy it takes to maintain. This realization, while bittersweet, is something I've embraced not out of sadness, but out of self-preservation. For most of my life, I was the person who always said yes. I gave my time, energy, and heart freely. Whether it was a neighbor who needed help, a friend in crisis, or a family member who needed support, I was there. I thrived on being someone others could depend on. In fact, I used to believe that my worth was tied to how much I could give to others. Being helpful, being needed, it felt good. But as the years went by, life taught me lessons I couldn't ignore. I've been hurt by people I trusted, let down by those I held dear, and emotionally drained by relationships that demanded more than they ever gave. One instance that stands out to me is a friendship I cherished deeply. For years, I'd call this person regularly, checking in to see how they were doing, supporting them during their tough times. Yet when I went through my own struggles, their silence was deafening. That imbalance became a wake-up call. Relationships shouldn't feel like one-way streets. Setting boundaries for peace. In my younger years, I overlooked red flags because I wanted so badly to see the good in people. I'd rationalize toxic behavior, convincing myself that everyone deserves second chances, and third and fourth. Loyalty, I thought, meant sticking it out no matter how much it hurt. I remember staying in a work relationship that drained me daily. I kept supporting a colleague who always leaned on me but never reciprocated. I stayed because I thought it was the right thing to do. Eventually, I realized the cost, my own happiness. Now at 70, my perspective has shifted. Avoiding people doesn't mean I've closed myself off from the world. It means I've learned to protect my own well-being. I've set boundaries that prioritize my peace of mind. I no longer feel obligated to maintain relationships that are one-sided or toxic. The drama, the emotional roller coasters, the guilt trips. I've walked away from all of it. Instead, I've chosen to nurture meaningful solitude. I've replaced the chaos of social obligations with the quiet satisfaction of spending time alone or with those who truly matter. There's a deep sense of joy in choosing quality over quantity. For example, I now spend my weekends gardening or reading. There's no pressure, no demands. It's just me, doing things that fill my soul. Cherishing the right connections. This doesn't mean I've turned my back on relationships entirely. In fact, the opposite is true. The connections I've kept are deeper and more meaningful than ever. These are the friends and family members who have stood the test of time. They're the ones who show up not because they need something, but because they care. I think of my neighbor who's become like family. We'll sit on the porch, sharing stories, laughing, and sometimes just enjoying the silence together. There's no pretense, no expectations, just genuine companionship. I've also learned the importance of being intentional with my time. When I do spend time with others, it's because I truly want to. Recently, I had lunch with an old friend I hadn't seen in years. We reminisced about our younger days, shared updates about our families, and laughed until our sides hurt. That afternoon felt special, not because it was planned or forced, but because it was meaningful. Lessons learned along the way. Looking back, I've learned that avoiding people isn't about shutting the world out. It's about creating space for what truly matters. Here are a few lessons I've gathered along the way. Protect your peace. You have every right to walk away from situations that drain you. Peace isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Quality over quantity. A small, close-knit circle of genuine connections is far more fulfilling than a large network of superficial ones. Value yourself. Your time and energy are precious. Don't give them away to those who don't appreciate them. Solitude is sacred. Spending time alone doesn't mean you're lonely. It means you're comfortable in your own company. By choosing solitude and setting boundaries, I've found a deeper appreciation for the people and moments that truly matter. It's a lesson that came with age, but one I wouldn't trade for anything. When I look at my life now, I see it not as a chapter of isolation, but as one of intentional living. And in that, I've found peace. 7. Is it just me, or are you feeling this too? As I move through this chapter of life, I often wonder, do others my age feel the same pull towards simplicity? Is it just me, or does time itself guide us to become more intentional about what we let in? Life's ups and downs, the heartaches, betrayals, and lessons learned, teach us to guard our hearts and prioritize our peace like never before. Looking back, I see a younger version of myself who worked tirelessly to meet everyone's expectations. I wanted to be the dependable friend, the loving partner, the ever-supportive family member. I said yes when I meant no, sacrificed my time to please others, and left little for myself. But as the years unfolded, I started to notice how exhausting that cycle was and how unsustainable. Today, I've made peace with choosing differently. I no longer feel the need to apologize for valuing my time and energy. If solitude feels more fulfilling than a crowded room, I embrace it without guilt. If I need space to breathe, reflect, and simply be, I give myself that gift. And in doing so, I've found something invaluable: clarity, the turning point. Learning to let go. A few years ago, a close friend of mine, Susan, shared a story that deeply resonated. She'd spent decades hosting big family gatherings, making sure every holiday meal was perfect, every detail flawless. But one Thanksgiving, she realized she felt more drained than joyful. While everyone around her seemed happy, she was running on empty. That year, Susan made a change. Instead of cooking for a house full of people, she invited just her 2 children and their spouses for a quiet dinner. They laughed, talked, and lingered around the table in a way that felt intimate and unrushed. It wasn't the big event everyone expected, but it was exactly what she needed. Her story stuck with me because it mirrored my own journey. Over time, I've learned that it's okay to let go of traditions, relationships, or expectations that no longer serve us. When we create space for what truly matters, we find deeper joy and simplicity. Lesson: letting go isn't about giving up. It's about making room for what fills your heart. Prioritizing quality over quantity. Another shift I've noticed is how my relationships have evolved. In my younger years, I thought having a wide social circle was a sign of success. I attended every event, joined every gathering, and kept in touch with acquaintances I barely knew. But as I've grown older, I've realized that depth matters far more than breadth. Take my friend Robert. In his 60s, he made the bold decision to reconnect with just a handful of friends who truly added value to his life. He'd send handwritten notes to those he cherished and plan meaningful outings rather than large get-togethers. One day, he invited me for a long walk by the lake. We talked about everything: family, dreams, even our fears about aging. That conversation, filled with vulnerability and warmth, left a lasting impact on me. It reminded me that even a single meaningful connection can bring more joy than a dozen surface-level interactions. Lesson: true connection isn't measured by numbers, but by the depth of the bond. The freedom of choosing solitude. Solitude for me has become a sanctuary rather than a sign of isolation. I remember a time when spending a weekend alone felt unsettling, as though I should be doing something or seeing someone. Now I look forward to these quiet moments. One Saturday morning, I brewed my favorite tea, pulled out an old album, and let myself get lost in memories. I smiled at pictures of my younger self, so eager to please, so willing to stretch thin for others. That morning, I realized how much I'd grown. I wasn't lonely, I was content. And in that contentment, I found freedom, the freedom to honor my own needs without explanation. Lesson: solitude isn't emptiness, it's a space to rediscover yourself. This chapter is yours to define. If you're in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, maybe some of this feels familiar. Perhaps you've started stepping away from relationships or commitments that leave you drained. Maybe you've embraced quiet evenings over busy ones. Or perhaps you've just begun to explore what it means to prioritize your peace. Wherever you are in your journey, know this: there's no one-size-fits-all path. Some people thrive in vibrant social circles, while others, like me, find joy in smaller, deeper connections. Both are valid. What matters most is that you live life on your own terms. At 70, I've come to embrace this truth. Life's later years are not about holding on to what was, but about embracing what is. They're about shedding what no longer fits and creating space for the things that bring peace, joy, and meaning. So if you find yourself choosing differently than you once did, don't see it as a loss. See it as growth. Every choice to protect your energy, every step toward simplicity, is a step toward living authentically. The greatest gift you can give yourself is the freedom to be unapologetically you. 8. Embracing this chapter. At 70, I have come to view life not as a series of endings, but as a series of beginnings. Each stage of life unfolds like a new chapter, filled with unique lessons, fresh challenges, and its own kind of beauty. This stage is no exception. This chapter feels like a culmination, a moment to embrace the person I've become and to release the things that no longer matter. In youth, life is often marked by urgency, the constant push to achieve more, to do more, to be more. There is a restless energy, driven by the belief that the future holds infinite opportunities. But as we age, that restlessness subsides. The urgency gives way to a quieter appreciation for what is present, for the beauty of now. The joy of simplicity. This phase of life isn't about giving up. It's about refocusing. It's about savoring life's small, often overlooked moments, like the soft glow of morning sunlight streaming through the window, the sweet sound of a grandchild's laughter, or the gentle embrace of a loved one. These simple moments carry a richness that is easy to miss when you're caught up in life's earlier hustle. Just last week, I spent an afternoon with my granddaughter baking cookies in the kitchen. Flour dusted her tiny hands as she giggled at her imperfectly shaped cookies. As we waited for them to bake, she asked me to tell her stories from when I was young. That afternoon wasn't about grand achievements or milestones. It was about connection, joy, and the shared warmth of a simple activity. It reminded me that life's true treasures often lie in these unassuming moments. A time for reflection. At 70, reflection becomes an essential part of the journey. I often look back on my life, not with regret, but with gratitude. There were victories that filled me with pride, missteps that taught resilience, and heartaches that shaped me in ways I couldn't appreciate at the time. Each event, whether joyous or painful, has contributed to the tapestry of my life. I remember a time when I faced a significant career setback. At first, it felt like the end of the world, but that detour led me to a completely different path, one that aligned more with my passions and brought unexpected joy. Today, I see that setback as one of the best things that ever happened to me. It taught me that even in our darkest moments, there is the potential for light and growth. This reflection isn't just about looking back. It's about finding the lessons hidden within those experiences and carrying them forward. Life has shown me that every chapter, even the difficult ones, has its purpose. Looking forward. What excites me most about this chapter is the realization that there is still so much to explore, learn, and create. It's a chance to focus on what truly brings joy. Whether that means tending to my garden, diving into a new hobby, or simply sitting in stillness, this stage is an opportunity to prioritize what matters most. A few months ago, I started painting. I've never considered myself an artist, but I've always admired the way colors blend on a canvas. One afternoon, inspired by a documentary, I bought a small set of paints and brushes. My first attempts were far from masterpieces, but I found the process deeply satisfying. As I painted, I felt a sense of freedom, unburdened by the need for perfection. It reminded me that it's never too late to try something new, to follow a curiosity, or to create simply for the joy of it. The freedom of letting go. One of the greatest gifts of this chapter is the freedom to let go, to release the expectations imposed by others, and more importantly, those I've placed on myself. There is no longer a need to prove anything or chase after arbitrary standards of success. Instead, I've embraced the idea that being present and authentic is enough. This freedom also extends to saying no. No to commitments that drain my energy, no to relationships that don't nurture my spirit, and no to the pressures of trying to please everyone. By creating these boundaries, I've made room for what truly matters: peace, love, and meaningful connections. For example, I once felt obligated to attend every family event, even those that left me feeling exhausted. Now I've learned to prioritize. Last holiday season, instead of attending a large gathering that felt overwhelming, I chose to host a smaller dinner with my closest loved ones. The result was an evening filled with heartfelt conversations, laughter, and a sense of calm that I'd been missing. Living authentically. There's a certain courage that comes with age, the courage to live authentically and unapologetically. I no longer fear judgment or misunderstanding. At 70, I've earned the right to prioritize my well-being, to speak my truth, and to live life on my terms. This courage is empowering. It's what allowed me to pursue painting despite my initial hesitation. It's what gave me the strength to walk away from relationships that no longer served me. And it's what inspires me to wake up each day with the intention to live fully and deeply. Gratitude as a guide. Gratitude has become my compass. I am thankful for the life I've lived, for the people who have walked alongside me, and for the memories I've made. I am grateful for the resilience that carried me through tough times and for the joy that illuminated the good ones. Last year, I experienced a health scare that reminded me just how precious life is. In the months that followed, I found myself cherishing every moment, from the simple pleasure of a morning cup of tea to the heartfelt conversations with friends. That experience deepened my appreciation for the here and now, teaching me that even life's challenges can be blessings in disguise. Embracing the present. So what does it mean to truly embrace this chapter? It means honoring the past without clinging to it, welcoming the present with open arms, and looking to the future with hope. It means finding beauty in the everyday, cherishing the relationships that matter, and letting go of anything that doesn't bring peace. It's not always easy. There are moments of loneliness and uncertainty, times when I miss the people and places that shaped my earlier years. But even in those moments, I found a quiet strength within, a reminder of how far I've come and the resilience that resides in me. The final lesson. At its core, this chapter is about living with intention. It's about celebrating the possibilities that remain and embracing life fully, one moment at a time. It's about acknowledging that every stage of life has its own unique value and that this one, in all its simplicity and reflection, may just be the most profound of them all. Life isn't about the grand milestones. It's about the small, meaningful moments that shape our days. This chapter, though different, is no less important. In fact, it feels like the most authentic, honest, and peaceful part of my journey yet. And for that, I am deeply grateful. Closing thoughts. At 70, life has shown me that it's not about the quantity of things we achieve or accumulate, but the quality of the moments we hold dear, the connections we nurture, the peace we protect, and the joy we find in the simple things. I've discovered beauty in simplicity, resilience in quiet moments, and fulfillment in focusing on what truly matters. Choosing to prioritize peace isn't about shutting others out. It's about valuing the harmony we've worked hard to create. If you're on a similar journey, remember this. It's perfectly okay to follow what feels right for you. This stage of life is a chance to embrace what brings us happiness and live authentically. Together, we can savor every moment, no matter how big or small. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What is one life lesson you've learned and plan to apply in your own life? Share it in the comments below. I'm sure your wisdom will inspire others, just as I hope mine has inspired you. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps support our channel. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on more uplifting and meaningful content. If you know someone who could benefit from this message, share this video with them. It might be just what they need today. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for sharing this journey with me. Here's to living life on your own terms, with peace in your heart and joy in every step. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.